Gentlemen, welcome back to Psychedelics today. This is Joe Moore. I'm here with Kyle Buller, and we are going to be talking about all sorts of stuff. But what you're probably wondering is how Jamaica went. It went great. We had a good time, and we're going to get into a more in-depth episode in the future. We're going to probably record with Eric and share that with you. There's a whole bunch of facilitators down there. I really, really appreciated them, and what else should we kind of share? Like 3 different mushroom sessions. People ate anywhere from a half gram to 12 grams of mushrooms. I think there were 2 people that ate 12 grams, and they were surprisingly coherent. And I can tell you the mushrooms are not weak, because one person had the most intense archetypal mythic experience that you can really imagine. And that was on less than 6 grams. So dosage is a funny thing.
Psychedelics are not dose dependent, as Dave Nichols always mentions.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting. Learned a lot. One thing that was surprising to me was how similar psychedelic work and breath work is. So the people were shockingly easy to work with. I know that's not always the case, but it's just something to consider. I want to keep talking to Eric and see if we can, develop a longer term partnership and keep offering workshops for you guys down there. But word will come. We'll keep you posted. Anything else you want to say about Jamaica at this point?
Yeah, Jamaica was fun. It was beautiful. Really awesome culture. The locals down in Treasure Beach they were really nice. It was a really great environment, and it kind of makes me wonder about the dose and setting and how that really affects people's experiences. Because I remember talking to Eric and Catherine and a few other people about these high doses, and just kind of couldn't really wrap my mind around, eating these 8 to 10, 12 grams and talking about people not experiencing too much anxiety, and then finally experiencing it like firsthand and being like, yeah, what's going on here? It's just very interesting. It makes me wonder if the ocean and the air down there and the sun just kind of plays a role into having, a nice experience. So yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah, and I was thinking sitting for people with these high doses, it could be really intense. But yeah, it was really interesting to see how positive some of these experiences were for people. I mean, obviously some folks had some, really deep cathartic experiences going inside. But I was just really surprised on some of the higher doses that, people were able to get up and walk around. I just think about high doses just being incapacitated and just being very internal. So yeah, the dosing was probably one of the most interesting aspects of Jamaica, and just trying to wrap my head around it and kind of observe and just kind of understand how it works. And then I just keep coming back to, maybe these things aren't dose dependent. Come back to that perspective on Stan. Stan says, their psychedelics are non-specific amplifiers of mental processes. So it just makes me think that, these are tools or vehicles to help dig into this stuff, and whatever's the most highly charged piece of emotional content there, it's amplifying it or bringing it to the surface. And, if you have 3 sessions in a row, maybe you work through a little bit the first time, work through the second time, and then the third time, maybe those high doses aren't really amplifying that highly charged emotional content within the body and mind. So
that's interesting. Maybe the subconscious charges are just so subtle at the third dose, because it's the pressure has to build up kind of over time, maybe. And then the third dose, you just don't have as much psychedelic fireworks, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you ever had that experience in breath work? Because I mean, obviously, it's kind of like that same model working with Stan's theories of going like doing because I was doing it maybe once a month, and then sometimes it was like those 5 days where you'd have like 2 or 3 sessions, and sometimes it's intense, but the more I engaged in it, sometimes things wouldn't come up. I guess the more you do some of that work, and then I'm like, I wonder what's going on here. Why am I not having a big experience? And maybe it's because some of it's been worked through. And
that's interesting. Yeah, I've seen it both ways, right? Like maybe it just takes a little bit longer to crack the character armor or whatever it is, and for that stuff to come out. I think part of the problem is there's so many ways to model this.
Oh, definitely.
You and I are going to record an episode once we're both finished the Pollen book, but the Pollen book does a really good job talking about Carhart Harris's kind of findings around the default mode network, and I think that's one way to look at it. It's a really coherent way to talk about this stuff, but I don't think it's a totally complete picture yet. Like, but perhaps maybe that person that ate 12 grams and didn't totally break through, maybe 30 grams would have done it if you could keep that kind of thing down. I don't know.
Right.
LSD is a little more palatable. You can keep it down. That's part of the problem with it.
You don't have to take handfuls of pills and mushrooms and organic matter into the body.
Yeah. Which has me thinking too about like isolating psilocybin from mushrooms. Like perhaps that's cheaper or pretty easy relative to like synthesis, like a Dave Nichols style synthesis, and does that make it less stressful on the body? And I think there would be something there worth checking out. I'm all for mushrooms, but there's always room for experimentation.
Yeah. Was there anything particular that stood out for you over the week?
I just loved being there, man. I like after 2 days of being in Jamaica, I was like totally chilled from my day-to-day work stress. Like I had been kind of freaking out for 2 weeks leading up to the trip, going, oh my God, am I really doing this? What if my work finds out? Oh my God. And then I get to the Denver airport. I'm like, oh, I feel totally fine. Great. I'm ready for this. And it was a super chill flight and super, super wild car ride from Montego Bay to Treasure Beach. That was buck wild. My girlfriend sat shotgun, bless her heart. And our driver was unbelievable. He was very skilled. It's a different kind of driving over there.
Sticky, right?
Like sticky, icky. And
that was his name.
Yeah, man, I loved it. I loved the beach there, getting up in the morning and just jumping in the water and the ocean for a little bit. It was awesome. It was a little too hot for my taste, but maybe I'll get over that. It froze here last night. It's May 30th, and I saw frost in the grass last night. So, like, this is the world I'm coming from. To like,
what are you, 10,000 feet up?
Yeah, 9,600 at the post office or something. So yeah, we could even still get rain. Typically, I get my studded tires removed and put my regular tires back on. It snows right away, and it kind of looks like it could be snowing right now on May 30th. Thank God. Anyway, that was awesome. I loved like the vibe of the Jamaicans. I felt really safe like the whole time. So I have a gay friend who is concerned about like the anti-gay attitudes and violence sometimes reported about in Jamaica, and I'm like, that wouldn't be the thing gating me to go. In fact, there was a number of gay people with us. Gay people go down pretty regularly to this place. So I'm like, yeah, I don't see the problem. And the culture in Treasure Beach, I just don't even see how it could go sour like that. Like everything was
well,
chill.
It was definitely different from Treasure Beach, and then Joe and I went up to Negril after for 2 days, and that definitely had a much different vibe. And actually, the driver asked me about that because I guess somebody that was staying with them was on their honeymoon, a gay couple. So I mean, that conversation actually did come up, and he gave me his beliefs on it. So I know that the like down there that is like I don't know, an issue, or they just don't have the same beliefs as people in the States like about that.
Yeah.
Or, you know, in more liberal parts of the state, I should say.
Right. It's interesting. And I think times are changing down there. They're at a point in cultural evolution where they want more acceptance from, you know, more developed countries, and, you know, they don't have Zika virus yet, which is a big deal in the Caribbean. You know, there's a lot of benefits to that, and they have kind of a quasi-Western infrastructure because it was a British colony for a long time, and they put water everywhere. So, yeah, there's pluses and minuses to it. It's a lot of potholes. Like, I personally wouldn't really want to drive a car there. Let's talk about Negril for a minute. All the mushrooms we saw. I was offered mushrooms word of mouth by like 20 people, and then we saw signs all over the place.
Yeah, right down the road, there was a stand that was selling like souvenirs and stuff, and it just said, you know, mushrooms for sale. I think, what was it, like $50 for, maybe $40 for a gram? Or?
It was 20 US for a gram.
20
So that's an
gram.
expensive eighth, but, you know, if you don't have access at home, you could have access there. I'm not going to vouch for the quality of those mushrooms.
Right. I was like, where are these being grown? But then right after we passed that stand that night, we were walking back from dinner. Some guy was walking by, older gentleman. I guess he had his daughter or granddaughter. And he's like, you guys want some mushrooms? And I was just like, okay, I guess these things are legal down here. Like,
it's nonstop.
You know, it just, yeah, it was kind of wild to actually hear somebody try to sell us those. And I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess this is okay down here.
Yeah, because it's like dicey, right? There's not too much on the books about these things. The government isn't really cracking down on these things. They're more worried about like gang violence and cocaine and whatever else. But yeah, even I think the police stopped by the Myco Meditations location before the guests even arrived, and we're like, yeah, somebody complained, but you guys are totally good. Like, keep doing what you're doing. We like you here. You're positive for the community. So, like, even that the police knew what they were doing, and like, you know, we're totally fine with it. It's just like culturally weird. I remember telling our driver in Negril that we were doing mushroom stuff, and he kind of just laughed immediately. But, you know, he gave us a moment for us to like lay out that there was university research going on and that it was really promising.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So yeah, let's maybe. Oh well, we did snorkel and we saw a stingray. Did you see any of the moray eels?
No, but I think that thing that we saw, it might have been a manta ray because it was huge.
It was like 5 or 6 feet across, maybe.
It was huge. I remember seeing that and was like, oh, I want to get out of here.
I was thinking about Steve Irwin, R.I.P.
That's exactly what popped through my mind. I saw like the huge stinger. I mean, the stinger must have been at least like 7 to 10 feet long. Maybe I'm exaggerating that, but I just thought about Steve Irwin as like, okay,
yeah,
I want to get far away as this thing as possible. But it was cool. It was really cool.
So many different varieties of fish, corals. Saw like a sea snake. The next day, Allie and I went out to what they call Booby Cay on the, I guess that would be the north side of Negril. It's just like a little island, like a half mile off the coast, a bunch of the resorts, and we get to snorkel in the morning. They cook you lunch, and then you snorkel in the afternoon on the way back. It's like, what was it, like 80 US? It was pretty awesome. It was just us on the boat. We had a great time.
Yeah.
And we saw all sorts of stuff. It was almost too much coral, which is heartening because I'm always thinking about environmental collapse and everything friggin' dying. So anyway, I think that's probably good on Jamaica for now, and we'll report back. We're gonna tie in with Eric, maybe record with him, and worst case, just do a show on our own again and debrief y'all. Give you like a play-by-play on how it went down. And you want to maybe talk about the blog you just put out, Kyle?
Yeah, so this has been in the works for a while. It just was kind of sitting around. I was like, I gotta get this out. But it's the blog's about how to navigate your way through this psychedelic field. So, over the past 2 years since Joe and I have started this project, we've been getting a lot of emails, a lot of people reaching out, just asking like, I'm a student, how do I get involved in research? Or like, I'm really interested in getting involved in psychedelics somehow. Like, how do I go about doing that? And, I think like the narrative within this community has been, get your credentials, do something in psychology or the medical field, health field, and then you'll be able to do research. But, you know, we've been talking to a lot of people on our show, and, you know, I feel like we kind of always ask, like, do you have any advice for students? And so we've been learning over the past 2 years of, like, you know, how can we really navigate this? There's so many more options now. So the blog is, you know, a nice resource of like different organizations, different ways to get involved. And, you know, it's not just academic route. You know, this podcast is a way to get involved. And, you know, I didn't really expect myself doing a podcast. My trajectory was, you know, grad school, become a therapist and get into the psychotherapy aspect of psychedelics. But, you know, as the field progresses and it starts to grow, there's so many different ways to get involved now. And I think, you know, it's really about honing in on some of your passions, your skills, figuring out kind of what niche you want to tackle, and, you know, just keep going at it. This is a new field. There's definitely going to be a lot of bumps in the roads, and we're kind of all trying to figure it out together. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to go about doing this. Well, maybe, I don't know. But, you know, there's just like, there's a lot of stuff. And I think we're all just trying to figure this out together of how this is going to work. So yeah, we'll probably all make mistakes and then do some tweaking and figure it out as it goes along. But yeah, so it's just a nice overview on tips and advice on how to get involved in the field.
Yeah, it's beautifully done. Kyle spent a ton of time putting it together. So go check that out. If you're feeling lost, feel free to hit us up. We'd love to talk to you. I'm just trying to think, like, the field does have some people doing some wonky stuff, obviously. Sometimes it's like literally dangerous. And I think the most important thing you can do is just have as much integrity and honesty as possible. Like ayahuasca, iboga, whatever, they're not cure-alls. There are like some small pilots and they have success rates, but maybe they weren't even repeated. So like the pilot could have had a 75% success. Maybe if it was repeated, it would have had 90 or like 40%. Like, you just don't know. So like, be honest about the figures to yourself and to others. And, you know, there's more coming soon. Like, you know, it's easy to get impatient around this. But, you know, just be honest, be forthright. And if you're providing services underground, like, get as much training as possible, you know, perhaps get a little interdisciplinary. Not everything is like, not everything out there is safe. Like, some psychedelics are dangerous. Psychedelics are dangerous for certain populations. So, you know, be careful. Don't like make the thing into, some sort of god and then start making mistakes and hurt yourself, your future, and the movement, you know? Like, I think we're seeing it with ketamine right now. Like, again, ketamine's kind of becoming like a cure-all. But it's because it's the most legal of the psychedelics, at least in the US. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, find a place where people need help in the psychedelic world and just jump right in. Graphic designers, lawyers, anything. But check out the blog, psychedelicstoday.com, and it's under the blog section there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. So there's like some general information for just, you know, just general stuff, and then breaks down for students, for your undergrad, and then also just some advice for people that are thinking about going to grad school. And then, yeah, the big question is like, well, where do I go to school? You know, there's a bunch of different ways to go about doing this. You could take a transpersonal route. You could do a traditional route. And I think it's really important that, you know, since all this research is coming out and, you know, there's been a lot of press about the Michael Pollan book and how that might influence it, that, you know, it's also not certain. And, you know, there's this push that MDMA might be legal by 2021. Doesn't mean that, you know, everybody will be able to become an MDMA therapist. So it's also important to have some backup plans because, you know, the future isn't set in stone. And it's also important to figure out, you know, like, what could you do even if, you know, this field doesn't take off. So it's, you know, I think it's also important to be honest with yourself about this. It's really exciting. I think we all get really excited about it. And, you know, I think it is also important to be somewhat realistic as well. Which is like a harsh truth. You're like, oh no, but, you know, I remain optimistic, definitely. But you know, I also think it's just important to to just be a little bit realistic about it.
Absolutely. Like, we don't know the real timeline. Also, do you want to work for an insurance company or not? Like, that's a discussion you're having with yourself right now. Like, do you want to be licensed and take payment from big organizations and follow their rules? And that's a thing you need to figure out for yourself. Like, a lot of people training to be therapists right now don't understand all the limitations that are going to be on them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the physical boundaries. Maybe you can't hug your patient. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's tricky. But, on the flip side, it's like I want to prepare myself for when this either becomes legal or, they want to start training more therapists, but also planning that, hey, if this actually doesn't work out, I'm okay with just being a regular therapist. Like I'm prepping myself to do that, and, be licensed. I think that's a great thing, but also, if something else shifts, that's okay too. But, seeing the opposite of like, okay, if I can't do this psychedelic therapy, well, at least I'm okay with being a therapist. So, those are questions you have to ask. Are you getting into it because the psychedelic thing is exciting, or are you okay with actually doing the job that you're training to do? Like, what if you want to do psychedelic psychotherapy and that's all you really want to do? Like, do you want to be a therapist after investing all that time and money into a counseling program or a PhD?
And here's the other part too. There's so many different subfields. There's like ethnobotany, ethnomycology, chemistry, just general harm reduction at festivals. We have a real shortage in the world of mycologists. We need a lot more of them. So if that's what you want to do, and you're cool working with inside a university setting, like maybe that's what you do. Here's an opportunity that is ripe, is going to a place like Jamaica or Brazil where mushrooms are legal and just doing basic mycological research on various psilocybin containing mushrooms that are legal in those countries. And there's a lot of basic research that needs to be done just because we haven't had the ability. It's been illegal to do research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, keep your options open, keep pushing, keep that passion lit and just go forward with something. Really kind of figure out what your skill set is, where your strong points are, and, how you want to develop those skills and apply it to the field. I remember talking to somebody about doing some sort of psychedelic research, and, they said, figure out maybe a technique, like a therapeutic technique that works really well adjunct to psychotherapy. So, what if I focus on something somatic based adjunct to psychedelic psychotherapy? So, thinking outside the box too. It doesn't have to be directly in the box in psychedelics.
Like the only options are therapy and research, and that's ridiculous. Yeah. There's way more than that. Way more. I was talking to my girlfriend the other day about like why I'm excited about the field, and it's so endless. Like there's so many cool fucking things you can get involved with, like religion and philosophy and everything else, in between, creativity research, and it's fucking like I can't think of a cooler field to be involved in.
Well, I remember like sitting in the grill on the porch there talking to you, and we just had idea after idea, and I remember we said the same thing. Like these ideas are endless, like since it is a new field, it's growing. I mean, there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of work to be done too. And so people, I think, need to get involved, and then there's the whole policy part. We need these policies to change so we can do research and move forward and do this work. So yeah, there's a lot of different avenues to take, and it's just not limited to academic research or therapy.
Right. So if you think of two of the major big organizations, Beckley Foundation and MAPS, they're both quite interdisciplinary. They're funding research, but they're also working on policy and a number of other things. Like, so I think we beat that one to death. Let's talk about this article from Jade Rose. Is that her name?
I believe so.
So I'll you look it up. I'll talk for a sec. So Kyle found this really interesting article somewhere, and we both read it, and it was about how licensed mental health professionals could be at risk of losing their license by providing integration services. And it talks about all the different ways in which you could be at risk, and what that risk looks like in some ways. And yeah, I don't know. Did you find it there?
Yeah, I did. This actually, I found this, I believe somebody posted it on a Facebook group, and it really kind of stuck out. And it was actually while we were down in Jamaica. So it was funny, like while we were down there, the Pollen book came out and then this one came out. It seemed like a really big week for psychedelics in some sense. And, we were doing this work down there, which was kind of ironic and cool. But, this article also got me thinking about integration and thinking about trainings, because I think one thing was like, one part of it is like, well, what makes you qualified to do integration work? And how the term integration is actually a pretty vague term. And like, does it even have a definition in the field? And when therapists or coaches are doing integration work, what does that really mean? How does one do integration? So, it was really raising the question on, even this new subfield of psychedelics, of psychedelic integration, and just kind of like outlining some questions and throwing some caution to the wind. And, it was interesting because, I managed the MAPS psychedelic integration list for about a year. And, we even have those conversations on like, what are we doing here? What is psychedelic integration? Is there even a training here to do this stuff? And, it's kind of funny because me and you put together this whole course on integration, and integration for me has just been this huge process of, obviously digging into these non-ordinary states and just trying to figure out how to live normal life with these insights or these experiences, and getting through some of the hard parts of it and whatnot. And, also having some training in mental health realms and kind of integrating that into the work. But yeah, it's very interesting that there isn't too much training in it. I'm thinking, the psychedelic education continuing care program, I believe they have a program for clinicians, which is good on that's like just psychedelic harm
program.
No, that's the psychedelic education continuing care program is Center for Optimal Living in New York.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, the CIIS is probably one of the only academic affiliated certificate programs for psychedelic researchers in therapy. It's based out of CIS. I think it's called Psychedelic Center for Therapies and Research, something along those lines. But it's a certificate program specifically for like licensed mental health workers and people of clergy and anybody that's like a professional in that realm. Mm-hmm. But
it's interesting.
Yeah, so
I'm getting a little frustrated overall with like the conversation around integration. Like people just say the word, and when I hear people say the word often, it feels like they have no clue what that actually means. Like what practices encompass good integration? Is it just talking? Is it a coloring book? Like those are good parts of it, but it's an individualized process, and it unfolds like for each individual differently, I think. And it's relative to like how intense was your experience. Were you God for 4 hours, or were you just like a little confused, or like felt great for a few hours? Like what one requires more attention. And I don't know, like I think you catch the drift because we spent so much time together down there. Like what I'm trying to get at, it just, what is it? What do we as people in the psychedelic world need to do to firm that up? Like what does the future for us look like in this little integration space? I think we're going to try to help with classes and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think with our Navigating Psychedelics course, it's, definitely a first step. I mean, we had a bunch of people in this field come together to give their opinions about integration. So I think it's, this has been a really great first step in trying to synthesize something and just get an idea out there. But, you know, the other part of it is that there's no research. This is so new that, you know, who's researching psychedelic integration and which techniques or therapies work best for integration. I mean, it's, we're at the beginning of all this.
It's not research, right? But it's, what do they call it? Clinical observations. It's like your practices observations is it's better to go this way, even though, you know, what Harvard Medical said to go that way. Stan did probably the most LSD psychotherapy sessions out of anybody in the world. And as a result, he had his hands on the pulse of these patients and he was responsible for them. And he, over time, developed these practices and they're in the holotropic breathwork world. Like if you get that training or read his books, like you'll understand it more and it's there. And, you know, we could do research on what's best, but until that's done, you know, we have Stan and several other, you know, experts, longstanding experts that can help us out. And I think we did a great job in the class talking about integration. It was kind of everything I've ever learned from breathwork integration, and it does immediately apply to psychedelic integration because they were doing a lot of LSD work back then.
Yeah. So this article, if anybody's interested in checking it out, it's called Integrating Underground Psychedelic Use, a Cautionary Note for Licensed Healthcare Providers. So yeah, this is specifically oriented towards therapists and health providers. But, you know, it outlines some really great questions. And there's one part where it offers up some scenarios. And maybe I'll just read a few of these off because this is like what caught me. It's like, oh yeah, if you're working with people, I mean, just saying that you might be at risk. You know, one of the first questions, do you have $10,000 to $40,000 in cash or other assets that could be easily liquidated to hire an attorney in case something comes up? You know, I mean, these are things I didn't even, you know, really think about. But, you know, one scenario, a parent livid that you condone the legal use of psychedelics for their 19-year-old daughter and bragged about your own great psychedelic experiences. You know, does that throw some red flags up? A client complaining that you did not warn him about the dangers of psychedelics and he's been psychologically harmed by their use and by your so-called quote unquote integration services. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things. Even just kind of talking about illegal use and people going out doing it. Will that come bite you back in the butt? District attorney charges you with distribution of psychedelics. The client got busted, charged with possession, and asserted that you were the source of the drugs. I mean, these things might not happen, but I mean, it's interesting to think about. And then you go to the whole thing about going beyond the scope of your license by advertising integration services and, you know, what happens if your licensing board starts an investigation and that doesn't really look too good with your license. If, you know, you have to check off, have you ever been investigated? Yes. So if you are a licensed therapist that offers integration or harm reduction, I would definitely check out this document. You know, kind of seems like I mean, I guess it's like the truth and reality of these things, and you know, it might be a little hard to digest. It was a little hard for me to digest at first too. I'm like, but you know, really thinking with it and sitting with it, it's like, yeah, these are actually really great points that as a professional or like a student becoming a professional, you know, really got to think about these things.
Yeah.
Which, you know, kind of makes me question the whole license thing as Joe. It's like, okay, what direction do I want to go into?
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting, man, that we're on such a frontier that a lot of people have to make a lot of hard decisions. And yeah. And, you know, reading that article just made it very stressful for me to even think about, like, going through all that school, then going through all the bullshit to get licensed and approved with all these different insurance companies, and like it's a catastrophe. I maybe that's why we don't have enough mental health professionals out there, just because of all this bullshit. it sounded like I'm talking to Leah Friedman maybe next week, and she was saying Massachusetts did something to really like lower the bar for providers. We'll probably, when I remember to share about that, I'll let you know and let everybody out there know. But it sounded like, yeah, they just knew people needed more help, and they were able to like kind of lower the barrier to entry to providing help to people, which is really cool.
Interesting. I wonder if that's like adding more like peer support, because I know some states are relying more on peer supports to help out.
I think a lot of it was too.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's definitely something to check out. So check out this article, and hopefully we can get Jade on the show at some point to talk about this. Actually, I think it says that she's actually going through or part of that CIIS program.
I think that's right. Yeah, she is at CIIS. But yeah, let's try to find her. That would be great. All right. So next, I think let's talk about the class with the T-shirt.
Oh, yes.
So there was a recent
talking about integration.
Recent catastrophe in England at a music festival where 2 people died. The Loop UK, which is the major drug testing organization in the UK, was unable to attend because the festival did not want them there. I can't say as a result, but if drug testing services were there, there's a chance that these people would have tested their drugs and not died. So it's partly the government of the UK to blame, partly the festival organizers, and just a culture of not talking about drug and drug harm reduction is not good. People should know what's in their drugs, and it shouldn't be illegal to find out. The drug war has never worked. In fact, drug consumption has only ever climbed. So let's, figure that out. So in support of harm reduction, we're offering a free T-shirt with every purchase of the Navigating Psychedelics course. So you buy that, we'll give you a $30 credit to our class, to our store to buy a T-shirt. And you'll have to cover shipping for that, just because, sometimes shipping places is nuts. But feel free. Check it out. We'd love to get more people out there with our shirts, and also more people out there with the class, because the more you know, I think that's just the thing, right? Like G.I. Joe, the more you know. So yeah, you can save lives. You do have the ability to get training, figure out how to use a drug test kit, educate your friends before they go to a festival. Like, these are the interactions you want to not seek. These are the interactions, if you really have to mix your drugs, do these instead of those, that kind of thing. Or, there's all sorts of stuff. We just want to keep you getting a benefit from psychedelics and drugs, get the chance to stay out of police custody and out of hospitals.
Yeah, this is festival season that we're heading into right now. So yeah, I think it's important to get some education. And, if you have trouble, if you're a student or anything like that, we do offer a discount code with that as well. So you could just send us an email from your university email, and we'll give you that discount, or, maybe just purchase it with a few friends, each throw a couple bucks at it. It is important now that festival season's here and people will be consuming drugs at these festivals. And it's always really sad to hear that somebody died at a festival from contaminated drug use. It's just the reality of the underground drug market. A lot of these drugs can be contaminated with all sorts of different things. So, it's important to do your testing. And then, also what are you going to do after this festival, this transformational experience? How do you work with that? What is it like going back home after you just had that really awesome experience? I even just experienced that coming home from Jamaica. I was like, oh too. Man, back in reality. I definitely fell down in the dumps for like 2 days, and probably also because of jet lag and all that stuff and travel. but I was like, oh man, okay, now what do I do? Okay, now I need to get a bunch of work done. But and that's what our course really offers, is a lot of tips on harm reduction, integration, and how to work with it. Part of the course, you'll get a trip journal, 2 PDFs. So one's a trip journal, the other one is an integration workbook. Integration workbook is just a bunch of different journaling prompts, activities, kind of goal setting. So coming up with different goals and trying to keep track of that, and hopefully help you make progress towards that. And the trip journal is just a nice way to keep track of things. You could print it out, download it. You could just use the PDF as a template for your own journal, in a sense, if you don't want to print it out. And hopefully in the future, we can get some hard copies made, which would be pretty sweet.
Yeah, I like it. That's going to be some work, but I think we should do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of our biggest class. Kyle actually just finished teaching a 6 or 8 week class with 7 webinars, was it?
Yeah, it was an 8-week live course. So using the core curriculum of the Navigating Psychedelics and using Zoom, which is our video conferencing platform, to just have a live classroom. So the students got to meet 7 times. The 7th one was a little extra just because our schedule was a little wonky and something just came up and we're like, okay, let's just do this. But yeah, 8 weeks, 6 meetups. And it's just, we meet for an hour and a half. It's a great time to use it as a classroom time. So that class, we just really use it as a time to talk about the course content, ask questions, and really kind of develop a community, which is really awesome. So I try not to do too much lecturing because all that's obviously in the course. And, I find it more engaging to have conversation. I think that's where a lot of the learning takes place. And also, everybody comes with different pieces of information and pieces of wisdom. So we had like a medical doctor there. We had somebody that was trained as a therapist. We had, people from all sorts of backgrounds. So we get to learn from each other versus like, me just teaching you. And I think, there's a lot of value in learning from each other and having conversations. So we will probably be launching a couple other cohorts once we figure out some dates for another live course. So, if you want to connect with us or kind of, get together with a little psychedelic community and go through this course together, we will probably be offering that shortly. So you can keep up to date. I think we have an email list somewhere, or just sign up for our email list and you can stay up to date for that. And it was really fun. Like, a lot of people learned from each other. There's some people that actually offered their own offerings. So somebody was trained in
neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. And so they offered free sessions to other class members, and somebody else was trained in like health coaching and offered that. Somebody else was trained in like yoga and said, I'd jump on a call with you to help you with your yoga practice. So it was cool to watch like, this small little community support each other in their own integration stuff, which was, I thought, probably the most special part about the course is the community building, the networking, and just learning from each other.
Yeah, it's always great to meet folks that have similar interests and are actually committed enough to learn. Like if you want to learn and you want to meet people who are interested in learning, this is a great way to do it. You don't need to travel to California or New York City. You can do it anywhere. So
yeah, and it was awesome. I got to get some special guests up here too. So, Catherine McLean joined us for an integration circle. And we also had another person, John Harrison, who worked on the MAPS Ibogaine study. He was part of the course for almost most of the classes, and it was really great to have him part of that. So, I'm hoping moving forward doing this that we can get other experts and people in the field on these calls too. So it also makes it like a really great intimate learning place where, it's kind of unique.
Right. So maybe the different thing this time around is I'll be offering a shorter one. Kyle might be offering a similarly length one. So if you want to go like deeper with Kyle on a 6-week program, jump on that one. I'll probably be offering a four meeting class. So higher value for sure than just like taking the class and, you know, having access to people online. But, you know, getting the opportunity to talk to us about the content, ask questions to us and also the team, I think is great. And the special guests are definitely a huge benefit too.
Yeah, and I also did a part of the course was actually doing some sort of creative project. So it did come with some homework, watching some of the videos and also doing some homework as an integration practice of creating something. And so I forget what some people came up with. Some people wrote poems. You know, it wasn't like a very intensive project, but just something creative to integrate your experience.
Yeah, you don't want that F on your permanent record, people. So do that homework. Yeah, so expect more classes too. We're getting really excited about even other content that we're going to deliver. And I think there's going to be some really exciting announcements from us in the next 2-3 months. We don't have the ability to share it yet because they're not official, but once they are, expect to hear it here first. Hopefully that tickled your interest. And if you are, so here's a question for all of you out there. If you are interested in doing kind of private mushroom work with us in Netherlands or Jamaica, email us and like, let's have that conversation. They are legal in those countries, and we want to figure out a way to get more involved in that. So yeah, reach out. Psychedelics Today, email at gmail.com. Let's see. What else do we have here? DMTX.
DMTX, yes. So yeah, we have a training webinar. It's a 4-week webinar up on our Teachable platform. I hosted that with Daniel McQueen of Medicinal Mindfulness. So he's kind of streamlining this DMTX research project, which I'm sure if you've been listening, you've probably heard all about it. Intravenous DMT extended state. So using an infusion pump to keep the concentration of DMT consistent in the blood plasma. So it's kind of just keeping you in that DMT state. Should be really interesting. All the proceeds from purchasing that course will go to the project. Obviously, this probably won't be an FDA funded study. So, you know, Daniel is taking more of a grassroots approach to this and hoping that the community will support it in the funding. So Daniel does have a team ready. He has a primary investigator, principal investigator all lined up, and it's just about getting the funds together and just organizing it, and hopefully we can make it happen. I think he's looking at maybe doing like a safety data runs out of the country, just to get some info on how this could work. But you know, it's still early in the stages, but you know, if you're interested in this research, maybe you want to participate, one of the first steps is to enroll in this training. I know Daniel has a retreat coming up in September. That's part of the volunteer participation. Right. If you want to become a DMTX psychonaut volunteer.
So there's some interesting conversations around this online. Like, I'm totally in support of it. I think it's being done ethically and great. Some people were like getting a little nitpicky, in my opinion, saying, what do you mean the volunteers are going to pay? I was like, well, how else are we going to fund this thing? This is an outrageous project from the get-go. It's an incredible project, but you know, one gentleman from a major university I talked to, he really kind of runs the PhD program there, said it is gratuitously exotic, which I think is a great word. And but that said, Ben Sessa says this is a really interesting way to do a single drug study to really mimic ayahuasca use. And one of the problems studying ayahuasca is going to be that it's made of 2 different plants, and there's hundreds of possible different admixtures that various shamans will do at various times for reasons that aren't going to be clear to us Westerners. Mm-hmm. It's why are you doing that? Like, we just need the 2 plants, please. Makes our research easier. So this is one molecule. We can do really straightforward research with it that way. It'll be really interesting to see how that shakes out. So yeah, people were like, you're paying, but is it guaranteed that you're going to get a space in here? No, like $99 isn't enough to like get a promised seat into that kind of thing. And this is going to go through ethical review boards. Like, what do they call those? PRBs, IRB, independent review board, probably.
Mm-hmm.
It's my guess. And you might not meet the criteria. There is a chance that you're just learning more about this and also helping fund the research, which I believe they're going to be spinning up a nonprofit really soon to help make this more easily fundable. So I expect more on that soon. I don't know. Like it's a weird research project. Like should money be the reason that a weird research project doesn't get off the ground, and like standard protocols for asking rich people or colleges for money? It's like, no, why don't you get the money yourself and then do the research? It's like I don't know. I have problems with authority. I don't know. Listeners might have noticed that before. Like, do we really want to ask Big Brother for permission to get $20 from the piggy bank every time we want to do a research project? It's like, no. What if there were other ways? And with the cryptocurrency movement, and with a lot of these new people with psychedelic, probably a lot of dark web market vendors, they're now just super rich, and they're like, oh, I also love LSD. Let's fund LSD research with crypto. So, that kind of thing is probably going to be happening more and more.
It'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah. I should probably just start writing to those people, see if they want to do interviews. Hey, I know this is very risky for you, but what we could do? We could interview them over email on like Proton Mail or something.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah. I'm going to think about that more. All right.
Yeah.
50.
But yeah, it is interesting about the whole money thing. And, I guess the reality is that it costs money to do it, and, doing it this grassroots way, community funded. Because without like a clinical like focus, because, I guess the focus is what happens, what would it be like to just stay in an extended state DMT state? And yeah, I feel like that would probably be pretty hard to get past some FDA approved research project or anything like that. So I get it. I know a lot of people have commented on some things of like, doesn't seem ethical. But I don't know. I guess that's the reality we live in.
Right. Being steeped in university culture can really shape your opinions and perspectives in weird ways. So take that into account, please.
Well, it made me think of like, oh wait, I need to pay money to just get accepted as a volunteer. But then I'm like, but I had to pay an application fee for college, or like I have to pay all these fees for tests and different things like that.
Yeah, and that doesn't even come with DMT.
Yeah, geez.
There's no guarantee of DMT at college. So, not these days, it probably is. All right, so I had this thought earlier about narratives around a lot of these things. So we, as psychedelic journalists and educators, and soon to be a therapist on your side, we have all these different worldviews we can work from. And it often takes multiple perspectives to get a fully fleshed out picture of what's going on here. Science is still young on these things, and even philosophy doesn't really paint a full, complete picture of psychedelics. Like art doesn't, literature doesn't. The science may never get there. Maybe it will, but it's something to consider. And a lot of people want to make it into like the spirit of X is doing this to me. It's like, well, really? Like think really carefully about that. And it's okay to say that kind of thing, but maybe put it in the maybe box as opposed to the absolutely true box. Not everything you think is true. And not everything you experience is true. Like you could live 12 lifetimes in a DMT trip, and to what degree is that true? it's up for you to decide, but let's use more maybes here as opposed to is.
Yeah, ask more questions, I feel, is a good way to approach it. I mean, I've definitely gotten stuck in those like absolute truths. I mean, especially after having really profound experiences and having a near-death experience. I mean, geez, I thought I knew it all when I was younger. And then, life gets stranger and makes me ask a lot more questions and feeling like I know anything sometimes. Like once I have something figured out, life will find a strange way of proving me wrong. And I'm just like, okay, I thought I had it. I thought I knew the answer, but maybe not. Maybe I need to ask another question or just approach it differently.
I remember reading a business book in the last 6 months or so, and one of the big takeaways this guy had was, when you're making decisions, ask why 7 or 8 times. Just like an annoying little kid, but like do it.
Why?
Yeah, like this is why, but then like, can I ask more whys below that? Like, in the business world, it's like, why do I need more money? Like, why do I need to make 7 million this year? Is it to impress Trump next time you meet him? Or is it, something more satisfactory? Maybe you wanted to start an ayahuasca center or whatever. I don't know. That's for people to decide, but ask more questions. Why is very helpful. And there's plenty of other questions too. And if you're confused, let us know. We'll come up with some questions for you. Cool, man. Anything else? We're at about an hour.
I wanted to go back to the DMTX thing. Yeah. Just popped in my head after we stopped talking about it. If you are interested in learning more about that, on our Teachable page, you can go down to the curriculum. The first week is free and open. You can also search it on YouTube. The first week of the course is free on YouTube. Daniel and I talked about releasing the second week as well. So, stay tuned. That might happen too, either on YouTube or on the Teachable page. So, if you're interested in learning about that, go check that out. And then, and just another reminder that if you purchase Navigating Psychedelics in the month of June, we'll receive a $30 coupon for our Shopify account, our store. And so, if you don't want a t-shirt, we also have mugs and stickers up there. So you can use that any way you want on there. Just don't buy the trip or integration journal because that's included in your course purchase.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if that happens, just let us know. It'll be annoying for us, but not that annoying. We'll still help you out. So I think that's it. I could think about 100 things more to say, but overall Jamaica was fun. We'll get you more info soon, hopefully next week or the week after. Pictures coming soon to the Psychedelics Today Facebook page, and probably on our website we'll do a blog, I bet, in the near future too. So thanks, Kyle. Thanks, listeners. And until next time, bye-bye.